Good morning, pigeons. How are you doing? Spat's doing well. He just got fed. I just got fed, and now I have a lovely cup of coffee. Hod's eating everything. Brian is asking hypotheticals about the Hod eating lore. And everything is the way it should be. Oh, I'm glad to hear you're doing well, Brian. It warms the cockles of my heart. I don't know what a cockle is, but whatever it is, it's been warmed, I'm sure. But yeah, another glorious day here in the pigeon coop with my pigeons. Just chilling out and having a lovely little chat. And we'll watch some videos today too. Because there have been some more that have been recommended to me. And, you know, it's just a great way to spend some time with y'all. As well as just to talk about what's on all of our minds today. Who knows? And so for me, I have this thing where I just don't sleep well a lot. Yeah, I have like inverse insomnia. I have no problem going to sleep. It's the staying to sleep that's the problem. And but there are sometimes I'll wake up and it's just like I need like a forensics expert to figure out what the hell happened. So like this morning, when I woke up, I think it was like around 4 a.m. my time. And I woke up and like my blanket was turned 90 degrees around. So it was like sideways. And I have 3 pillows. I have one I keep like for my legs for back support. I have one that I obviously sleep on. And then I have another one just to like rest my chest against. And the chest pillow was outside of its case and on the floor at the foot of the bed, but the case for the pillow was off to the right and not even like directly onto the floor. It was like away. So it's like, what the hell happened last night? What did I do? Jesus, I was a thrashing. Yeah, so that's forensics analyst or a night cam. I've been told by people before that I have sleptwalk before, so that could be what goes on. I don't know. I can never remember it for obvious reasons. That's how sleepwalking works. So sadly, don't have any good sleepwalking stories. Who knows what wacky things Sleepy Rizwan gets up to. Also looking into seeing, I've been looking into this for a while, but more and more recently, really trying to figure out this whole like social media and like community growth thing, because I have no idea what I'm doing. And while I'm not doing anything wrong, I'm certain there's certainly something I'm not doing for sure. Or maybe I'm doing something wrong. I don't know. Hey, Setsuna, welcome back. Hope you're doing well. So, I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, but there's definitely something I'm not doing, which is what I'm trying to figure out, because I see so many of my compatriots doing well and doing significantly better than I'm doing, and I'm happy for them. I really am. I want to make that perfectly clear. I'm not saying this like, oh, I should be up there, but it does make me think like, okay, what are they doing that I'm not? What am I missing here? And it's so obnoxious because everything is like these get 100,000 views in 5 days with this one simple trick. Get out of here with your trick stuff. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for genuine information on what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's like you would think that the internet would be the best place to find it, but everyone's just like, no, you just gotta do these clickbaity tricks. Like, no, that's not advice. Those are scams for short-term payoff and long-term consequences. It's not what I'm looking for. Information hard to come by, or genuinely good information. I really wish we could get some of these scams out of here. That's the same. You see the same kind of thing in programming. I used to teach Java programming back in the day, and I always kept like this one. I hesitate to call it a book. It was more like a pamphlet, but it was literally like this this quote unquote guide that said how to build like a full-time web design business with zero experience. You have to. So soon, I'm so opposed to the idea, but I'll tell you what. If man, I'm trying to think of like some kind of goal that is feasible but still like really unlikely to happen. Okay, I'll make a deal with you, Setsuna. If you'll never find out if it's true or not. Yeah, that's man. I'll make a deal with you. If we ever get, let me think. If we ever get 100 likes on a stream, I'll do that. How about that? What if a stream ever gets 100 likes? I will do that. Yeah. Where was I? Apocalypse Bird has a bad habit of just like cleaning everything from right. So it was how to make a full-time web design business with zero experience, right? And so I don't like how confident Asuna wasn't. Oh boy, but and if you know anything about programming, you know immediately like that's not a red flag. That's the entire parade. And again, if the title isn't the big alarm bell, then just the size of it is, because this thing is like literally a pamphlet, right? There's like the Charmin Ultra toilet paper is thicker than this thing. And I would point to my students. I'd be like, yeah, so obviously this is the scam, but what it is, so literally all it was this guy in Uganda saying you just you find small businesses that either don't have a good website or don't have one. You ask them if they will like a website, and then you just hire somebody on Fiverr to do it for you, and then you keep the profit. Like, I don't know what the laws are in that country, but that's certainly illegal in America. Yeah, that's yeah, Brian is 100% correct. I am burning the building to the ground. I am burning everything within a quarter-mile radius of myself, and that includes me. I'm also burning myself. That's why I will never go to Australia, because if I find myself in Australia, I have to do that in advance, and I'll start the next wildfire. And all I can say to the Australian public and the wildlife is, I'm sorry, and I hope you understand. I used to, when I was big on browsing Instagram Reels, I used to follow this guy called Jordan Howlett. He feels the same way about spiders than I do, but he posted this reel that featured an Atticus spider. I don't know if you've seen these things. These things is the stuff of nightmares. These things are ginormous. They are monstrously big. They are fast. And according to Australians, they're harmless. I'll take their word for that. But the video he posted, like, I honest to God thought it was like a fake spider from like a Halloween store, right? And then it like raised its front legs up suddenly, and I chucked my phone. It was just like, whoa! I literally just like threw my phone. It was just like the most horrendous thing ever. Yeah, I was already uncomfortable just with the fake spider, but the moment like it started moving, I was like, nope, nope, not doing it. Yeah, spiders are not, spiders and I are not kosher. Not dealing with it. Thank you for reminding us that soon. Yeah, I'm going to do that on Tuesday. I won't have time really between now and then, because I've done something exorbitantly stupid. So, I work on the Best of March compilation kind of throughout the month. So after the streaming is done, I go through, I collect whatever clips I thought were really funny, or if somebody submits a clip, I'll make sure to include that as well. And I kind of build up over time, so I'm not like, I can give it some time and I don't have to like rush it at the end. Well, I was cleaning some things out and I completely deleted the video. It's gone. So I had to start all over again starting today. And of course, Best of March includes that lovely 11-hour stream I did. And I spent my entire morning combing through that stream. I'm still not done with it. Just like, Rizwan, why'd you have to do it all in one stream? Why are you such a stubborn bastard? Why couldn't you just split it up? You hate to see it. So no problem. I will just redo the entire month's effort in 8 days. No big deal. Not a problem. Something that made me laugh, I realized today, is that we had Limbus Company and Labami Corporation Part 1 in February. We're going to have Limbus Company and Labami Corp Part 2 in March. And then we're going to have Limbus Company and Labami Corporation Part 3 in April. And it's just like, how much do I want to keep that going? It's like, we could have Part 4 in May, guys. Meshing win rate. I don't know what that means, win rate. I don't know what that means. I'm just lighting things on fire. And if I can't light it on fire, I'll bleed it. That's all I got going for me. Anything else just does not compute with my brain. But tremor is like burn and bleed. It's not, yeah, but it's not burn or bleed. So therefore, hierarchy of needs: burn, bleed, and then anything else if neither of the other two apply. I don't even remember how many bleed or burn or bleed ideas I have. I think I have one of each right now. Then look at all the spoilers I missed. Yeah, we're gonna be doing that today too. I am so curious. I like Fairy. Don't get me wrong. The only reason I don't mention Fairy is because I can't. Only one person in the entire game can use it. So I can't build around Fairy. I can't make a Fairy deck. It's only Bina. And if I were doing a casual playthrough, I would just have like, I would just be playing Bina's floor and have burn everywhere else. So it would just be Fairy, and I would have like, it would be Bina. There would be 2 burn nuggets and then 1 bleed nugget. Just get more arbors. Oh, of course. What was I thinking? You know, silly me and my archaic manner of thinking. I wish. I'm sure there's a mod out there somewhere where I can just have Bina's cards. I mean, if there's one for the Black Silence, why not? Oh yeah, did I add the Finale to Library Bruno to the playlist? I don't think I did. I gotta check that. Gotten really bad about updating my playlist lately. I need to get better at that. There we go. A nice even 20 parts. Still doesn't feel real. But yeah. I'm sure there's a mod for it out there somewhere. But not my priority. First thing I'm gonna try, as I've said, is the ranged only. And then I want to try using only She Association key pages. And then I also want to do the Nuglock challenge that I've been working on. One of these days, we'll give that a go. Can it be done? I have no idea. But yeah. That's all in the future. For now, we must look ahead to Limbus Company and Labami Corporation. Oh boy, I cannot wait to be able to hire an editor to do this editing stuff for me. I really don't enjoy it, but it must be done. These are the things that help my channel grow. Rupture best stats. I'll take your word for that, but it's not burn, so I'm afraid it loses. The stats could be instantly win game, and I still wouldn't use it because it's not burn, and therefore it's not appealing to me. Oh boy. Oh boy. You do the loop-de-loop and pull, and then your shoes are looking cool. Got my me shoes coming untied. I know, Spat. Rupture only nice if you have a 15-3 conditional. Well, unfortunately, once again, we'll make it work though. Don't worry about it. Yeah, Spat. Spatch and agonizing. He's hanging out on top of the new PC, just chilling. That's another thing I'm so excited to start using is the new PC, and the parts, the final parts will be here sometime next week. I just need the fans. Literally just need the cooling fans and we are good to go. I'm so excited. Switch over that and start using that full time. Soon. We'll do a full tour of the new PC and we'll start stress testing it and see what it can really do. And hopefully, next month, we can finally get the 1.0 model up and running. Assuming no more delays. That's another thing I legitimately cannot wait for, is to finally have the 1.0 model up and running, and to be able to stream on Twitch as well. What do you think, Spat? One of these days I want to get Spat his own mic, so that Have a little spat PNG here that reacts to his squawking. Yeah, I think so. I know the people would love it. And if I could get you to stay in one place, I'd have a spat cam. But alas, you are a mobile little guy. Spat the mic. I would love to do that. I would honestly love to do that. I would love nothing more than to have a spat cam. I know that he would be adorable, but he just doesn't stay in one spot. He flies all around the bloody apartment. So I stream from my living room, right? So, and with my apartment layout, it's like living room, kitchen, it's all kind of one thing. It's all like one open area, and he's constantly flying around that, or he's like somewhere in my bedroom, which is like down the hall. So he'd either be constantly moving around, or constantly flapping about, causing chaos, or he would just be in a completely different room and you wouldn't see him. Yeah, that would happen, and it has happened. I assure you it's happened. I have some ideas for getting the spat cam up and running. That one, spat cam, excuse me, the spat mic. Because I have a couple of different mics, so I can just have, I can just like put them in one in each room, and then the PNG would react to whichever one, and that would be fine. The camera is a bit more challenging. Huh, because you're such a mobile little bird, huh? You're just all over the place. Yeah, I see you. You want to come here? No, you're just gonna stay on top of my new computer and yell? Yeah. I know, it's enormous. I posted a picture of it on Blue Sky. Hold on. Good. I said it yesterday, but I cannot emphasize how good of an investment this office treadmill is. I burned 1,200 calories on yesterday's stream. Let's see here. I know, Spat. I know everything. We're just gonna yell. We're gonna yell. We're gonna tell. Nope, that's a jar. All right, let me boop. All right, so here, here we go. So this is the setup. Here on the left is the old PC. This is the one I'm using right now. And then on the right is the new PC. Ooh. Yeah, look how big that thing is. It's huge. It's literally 70 centimeters tall. So that's where Spat is right now. He's chilling on top of there. Or he was. He decided to go into his play area over here. That's where you should be all the time, Spat. I put this play area here specifically for you. So you'd have something to play on and not have to ruin my stuff. There we go. I think it's scritches. We have scritches. There you go. I know, you're molting and you're itchy. I know. You're not fair. Come here. That's enough. That's it. No, shh. Enough. No more yelling. That's enough. It's quiet. No, it's quiet time. That's enough. You said quiet enough. Here. Here's your ball. Here, play with your ball. There you go. Alright. There you go. He's successfully distracted with ball. But yeah, so that is what the new PC looks like, and it's quite big. Getting that thing onto, I'm so glad that the desk can be lowered and raised, because I don't know how I would have gotten it onto the desk by myself. Alright. That's just about everything going on in my life right now. How about we see... how about we watch some videos? Alright, Spat's yelling again. Yeah, go over there. Go yell over there. That's enough. Alright. So I think, why don't we go back? We'll go way back to the lore stream. Let's see here. So this was, 3 months ago. I know. Yeah, December 11th. So I had just played Library of Ruina for the first time ever. And there were so many terms in this game. I was just like, what the hell is all the fixers, associations, fingers, wings, syndicates, head? What the hell are you guys talking about? I didn't know what any of that meant. So I was like, we're going to read some lore and hopefully make some sense of it. So what I was doing is I was going through the credenza, and every time the credenza gave me a term I didn't recognize, I would go to the Library of Ruina wiki. And people there, such as Setsuna, I don't even know. Setsuna, were you there for part 1? I know you were definitely there for part 2. I don't know about part 1. You'll have to refresh my memory. But I was just like reading the entries in the wiki, and people in chat were having a meltdown about spoilers, and I had no idea what was wrong. So now that I have context for everything, let's see what spoilers I was missing. Oh yeah, look at this lovely AI generated background. You know, when you're a streamer with no money, you do what you gotta do. I would be very happy to ditch all the AI generated assets. Is that really the music I used for Library of Ruina back then? I always try to pick a song that I think will fit the vibe of the game, or at least my interpretation of it. Maybe I hadn't started doing that yet. I actually don't know what song this is. Let's see here. Maybe about 10 minutes back then. Yep. We're gonna open up Google for the first time here and try to figure out what these what's the difference between a syndicate and a wing. Yeah, you sweet summer child. Hey, there's Setsuna. Hey, caps lock at the end, don't mind me. So, yep. So first of all, there's that, the black silence. Now, I don't think this will, even if I had noticed this, I don't think this would have spoiled anything, because the head is like clipped. Even though it shows like rolling right next to him, I don't think that will click for me, because the tuxedo is just such a generic bit of clothing. So I didn't notice this at all, but I think even if I had, it would not have clicked for me.
It's our organizations in the city that are the opposing forces of fixers. They are one of the main types of guests in the game. Yep, fair enough. Open up the fixer one. Being the unlawful counterparts of fixers, syndicates are made up of thugs and gangsters who commit several shady duties.
And I'm going to load up that page 2. Let's see. I can't believe type today. All right, so let's go in here. Syndicate. All right, so is there anything here that's spoiler-tastic? Blah 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 blah. Fingers label the stars of the city. Okay. Fingers. Dogs, night owls. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's anything spoiler on here, just in the... Nope.
These activities often linked to organized crime and share a common goal. Social was just mentioned. Ooh, pretty.
Wings.
Are manifested day after day. Everything changes in the blink of an eye. The wings and the head control this world. Now humanity cannot live without their constraints. So wings, also known as the wings of the world, are a group of the 26 largest, most powerful conglomerates in the city. They act as the governing bodies of their respective nests of the city districts. Open that up. Powered by their singularities. Open that up too, why not? Golly,
we're going down the rabbit hole.
Patented technologies that can blatantly violate the laws of physics. The wings are directly ruled by the head. They opened up that one already.
Got hearing my own voice.
Why not?
Why
The eye
did we
and
evolve
claw.
so that our
Those are the
voice
eye and
sounds
claw,
different
the
in
left
our
eye,
head
the
than it does on a
The
recording?
Golden Eye is supreme authority of the city. The wings and their agents are among
There was
the
some poor
major
human at
characters
some
of
point
the
who was
Library
the
of Luna.
first human to ever hear their own voice played back on a recording. It must have been like, ugh.
Surface level here? Yeah, I figured as much. I'm only digging into the surface level just to get an idea of what anything is, so that way I don't get things spoiled. I'm doing my best to be careful. I imagine some things will get accidentally spoiled for me, but
Nope.
hopefully we'll keep that damage to a minimum.
Fortunately, Rizwin, we can't read.
Okay. Nests. Nothing in nests. Okay, this was I've been deceived. A singularity is the unique, fantastical technology a wing possesses which seemingly defies all known laws of physics. The corporation exploits its singularity in order to conduct business. Okay. So a singularity is basically like magic technology.
Magic.
To know and manipulate all the secrets of a world that is the privilege of the head, the eye, and the claws is their honor and absolute power. No one dare stand against them as long as they exist. The tail of the nest will never reach its close. I still don't know what the nest is. The head is the supreme government
You'll
of the
find
city
out.
and the leader of the wings. It consists of 3 wings: A Corp, B Corp, and C Corp, who reside at the center of the city. Okay, so the head is basically like, well, the head, it's literally just what it sounds like. It's the leader of this whole kit and caboodle. Fixers. Fixers are hired mercenaries that operate throughout the city. They're one of the main types of guests in the game.
Just replace this entire article with a big old picture of Dawn.
A multitude of tasks ranging from dangerous activities like combat, assassination, or air expedition to the ruins, to less directly violent tasks like negotiating contracts or gathering intelligence. In short, any job requiring skills that the average person would not have.
I'm reading ahead to see if I can find any spoilers.
Most of the work Fixers receives come from the back.
Already struggling to read, Rizwan. You'll learn. Don't worry about it. You'll find out that how bad you are.
Why are there links to nests that are just blank? Why?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
If someone in chat wants to tell me what the nest is or what it means in this context, I'd appreciate it. Nests are a nice part of the district, overseen by the wing and that resides there. Oh, you see, that's not that. Why can't you write the wiki, Setsuna?
Yeah, for real though.
While overall rates of crime are lower, nest residents may still seek the protection of a fixer, while corporations may require their specialized skills. The lifestyle of fixers is seen by outsiders as idealistic, as many view fixers as real-life heroes. Common city folk hear the holes on the planet. Don't at me.
Rizwanception.
Also, the back streets, even up to the
Yeah, I'm seeing spoilers here.
Each petitions
Like, man.
and only those formal office reported to the HANA Association, and that fixers must not threaten clients to get requests. However, common practice is for both sides, where more capable fixers are granted increased work options, pay, and recognition. In order to easily represent this, all fixers in offices are assigned a numerical grade ranging from 9 to 1 by the HANA Association, where grade 9 is the lowest and grade 1 is the highest. Haha, sucks for you grade 1's grade 9 is the protagonist here, let's go! While grade 9
if you only knew.
Not much stronger than a pack of rats, grade 1s are seen as capable of handling a quest possibility to talk all of a sudden. So effectively the grades are like
all of a sudden
a way of marketing. So once you get a higher grade award to you by this association, you effectively become more marketable and you get probably higher paying but also more dangerous contracts, and of course more notoriety, which brings you more customers, and yeah. Okay.
Snowball.
Right. I buy it. Organizations run by fixers within the city. They're one main type of description. Buy it.
Go back there. Oh, stop. Trying to read that last one. You bastard. Let's see here. Association. And I don't see anything spoilerific there.
Okay. Alright. Same type of description, blah blah. Offices are the first step of the fixer hierarchy overseen by the associations. They are regarded as the starting point for all fixers, and fixers, even the ones just have cooperative, almost familiar relationships among their members. Others will have fixers who have no qualms about betraying and exploiting each other to find success. And fastly, probably after that. These requests are when contract exists entirely entirely to handle the official and pay and trust professional fixer organizations which operate within the city. They are the major antagonistic factions and guest groups in the game. Okay, so an association is basically like a collection of offices. If there's this association and an office request given to them, greatly around with their fixers and can take requests.
Shout out to Harold.
From the head of an association known as the president, judge sections. Each below association acts as the leader. Is also known in this world as in general.
Yeah,
oh man, the bureaucracy in this
mentioned
world
Harold,
crazy.
but or Olivier, sorry.
The five fingers, also known
Mentioned Olivier, but nothing too big so far.
Who are labeled as stars of a city and run the back streets of the
I wouldn't
city.
have known who that was anyway.
Ranked as the stars of the city, the Five Fingers are the largest, most powerful syndicates in the city, having enough power and influence to even rifle the wings themselves. As the term implies, the fingers are like.
Oh, they were.
Who drew a short straw to be known as the Pinky?
I don't want to know that.
I picture like everybody in that particular syndicate.
God, I hate that you're able to hear me breathe so much. Hopefully it's better now, but I had significantly worse mic back then, and I also didn't have any kind of noise filters.
Above all other syndicates, absolute power and great influence in the back streets, and are responsible for.
Yeah, Riz one every alternate sentence.
Power and influence that now it's very hard. Okay, so the back streets as well as with other syndicates. Okay. So the main driving forces of this world are basically the thing that we.
Look at Rizwin learning.
Okay, literally yesterday, idiot.
So,
okay.
Like the rabbit hole we just went down, but apart from the black science, I haven't noticed like any outfit. Oh, it makes me sad.
Trash and a trash can are grading each other. This is pretty much what I was just saying. There's so much bureaucracy in this world and grading. The parts that are under the protection of a syndicate, office, or association are pretty safe. Sweepers can't raid those streets easily. Putting the people.
Yeah, okay, so that wasn't that bad. I mean, yeah, the Black Science is a spoiler, but only if you put the pieces together, which I don't. I'm not that smart. I definitely wouldn't have. Obviously, I know now, but I would just seen this like masked dude in a tux like I did in that one bit of fan art, but yeah, I would not have known that was him. So even if I did like actually like I became cognizant of the Black Science page, I would not have put that together. I know myself well enough to know that. Okay, all right, we can get rid of the syndicate page now. All right. I'm curious about this. This popped up in my feed one day, so I want to check it out because we like Jan. I think this might be a music video. Like anime and stuff. Wow, look at this guy. Jan's story is one of my favorite side stories. Might actually be my favorite. Leader of lukewarm milk before you go by only you. Right, pull the trigger with your right hand. Only thing that's left is to move on up only your hands. It's got some production quality. If you had told me this was the official music video, I'd believe you. City sucks. Angela. Pat, 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 pat. Reflected upon the murky gala sky. Don't ask me why. I desperately wish to be included in the city's night. There's a mod I want to mess with that modifies Jan's key page should be sort of like an ego page so that they distort at the proper motion level. Jan buff. Hey Banana, welcome back. I hope you're doing well. I have not seen this, but I'm loving it. I'm actually gonna drop a like right now. Just like you should for a stream if you haven't already. Hit that join link. The Index Weaver was a really fascinating character. I'm so sad they were only in one cutscene the entire game. I hope we see them again. Carmen! He seems to listen. Yeah. Technology's a thing. It's time for another vendetta. So now, children of the city, in the neon stars, on the murky gutter sky. Don't ask me why. I rapidly wish to be born with the city's eyes.
Do not go home until you finish reading the value of heat.
Oh, that's what the numbers are for. Okay. I didn't know. I never noticed what they set the value of in the song because the only time I've ever really heard this song is in battle. So I always wonder why somebody switched the numbers. Now I know. Shout out to E. That was really good. All right. Next up, we have... God, it's quite a thumbnail. We got this video sent to us by Everett. Goku's IQ in Dragon Ball Super portrayed by Library of Ruina. Yeah. Definitely all-time low IQ for Goku, for sure. Min-max wisdom strength. Everett, you're gonna hurt my feelings. Am I gonna be mad at you in a minute? I'm not looking. What's happening? Okay, no Apocalypse Bird, thank God. Okay, well that was a video. Okay. Alright. And next up, we have a few videos from the channel Frey Chikama, who apparently made a few video essays based on Library of Ruina. Most Project Moon generally, but I'm not watching the ones on Labami Corp or Limbus Company because spoilers. So let's see what they have to offer.
Look, I know this is the city, but if you're going to run a company of trained line artists, you would think there'd be some measures in place to keep them alive. But as it happens, the Shi Association, specifically the southern branches, are managed by a faceless fool that only kept his job because of a blue hobo into architectural vor. That sentence sounds insane on the surface, but somehow
what a description.
all of it is true, and dozens of fixers suffered for it. And now that we're probably 30 seconds into the video, it's my pleasure to tell you that today, we're diving into the Shi, the city's own association of assassination, their culture, their abilities, and how one man's desperate grab for power utterly fucked them all over.
Ooh, a lovely remix of Angela 1. I gotta look that up later.
As those guys
hold on, pause. Does he link that video somewhere? Damn you. Yeah, I'm gonna load that up. Just in case that's it. I'll look it up later.
Limbus and LOR that get stronger the closer they are to death. And while that's true, what I personally found interesting about them is that this iconic gimmick shouldn't exist. Not that it's badly designed or anything, I actually really like playing against it in LOR, but because all of these skills only developed because of the Shi's management making choices that go against their own principles. So that begs the question, what are those principles? Going from the Shi Association Fixer's credenza page, being an organization that is familiar with dealing death,
Hey, Peach,
the
welcome
Shi's
back.
code of honor is to
Hope you're
treat
doing well.
every person equally, as the weight of death is equal for everyone. The page goes on to say that no matter the target or the client, as long as they're paid, the Shi will take on the job without judgment and with discretion. And while a part of this is absolutely for the sake of keeping the business afloat, a significant number of the fixers in the Shi Association hold the sense of equality in high regard. The best example of this being the Shi fixers from Library of Ruina, Tenma, Valentine, and Eugen. We only get one reception cutscene with them, but even that's enough to tell a full story of the struggle they're dealing with. Every association is split into 4 quadrants, north, east, south, and west. And the Shi's South Branch manager, Thelma, has been sending endless jobs their way. More specifically, these are urban nightmare jobs that would typically take a week each to finish, and nearly a half dozen were just dealt to Eugen's team, Section 2, in only 10 days. This caused many of her team's fixers to die, and the 3 here to suffer from extreme exhaustion and injuries without any time to recover. By now, the team knows that no matter how well they handle these jobs, another one will immediately be sent to replace it until all of them are dead. A large reason for this is because Eugen has been investigating Argalia, also known as the Blue Reverberation, one of the most noteworthy figures in the city, who has been recruiting powerful people to his side. And what she's found suggests
hey,
that
musicians
he's
of
planning
Bremen.
something destructive that she intends to bring to the head. However, Argalia has also befriended Thelma by ensuring that he keeps his position as the manager of the Southern Branch. And to repay that kindness, he asks Thelma to have the Shi take out some hand-picked targets. As a result of that, and Thelma knowing that Eugen was investigating him and the Blue Reverberation, an avalanche of orders came their way, leading to where we are now. But Eugen has a plan. One of the groups Argalia has recruited is the Musicians of Bremen, whose book was recently left at the library, one of her assigned targets. If she and her team can take down the library and retrieve the book, they can find out what he's up to and a way to stop Argalia before the entire team is obliterated. So with this staunch conviction, Eugen, Valentine, and Tenma head into the library, hoping this next push will be their last. And they were right.
Yeah. Rip.
Now, as unprecedented as it is for someone to die in the library, we should still take stock of their strategy while they were mid-fight, because this shows an interesting divide in the Shi's identity. I mentioned earlier that the Shi was known especially for their skills that get more powerful the further they're pushed into a corner. In Library of Ruina, they get pages that increase their power at low health, passives that grant more light after using it all up, and a fatigue passive that gives members of the Shi more power as their allies fall. Each of these, both in name and gameplay, are based on exhaustion, self-damaging, and overexerting themselves while finding power through this. These also represent different obstacles that the Shis had to deal with under Thelma's onslaught of work. But why does this matter? Duh, if the team's been dragged through the dirt in the story, their gameplay is gonna match that. But that's the thing. This isn't all the Shi is. Both in Tenma's combat pages and key page story, she focuses on using speed to become more powerful. Valentine's the patron saint of singular strike and extreme edge. And Eugen's got a little page some people might know about called Boundary of Death. None of these are abilities that have to do with exhaustion and are all distinct in their own ways. And hell, if we drag in the Limbus IDs for a second, they follow a similar pattern. Dawn prioritizes getting speed up to become more powerful, and Ishmael has a healing mechanic on crit. She Heathcliff is the only one that leans solely into the low HP gimmick, which is weird because I thought there'd have been something noteworthy to say about using this ID. Oh well. Either way, we can safely say the vast majority of the named Shi units have more varied skill sets. And the reason this is important is because these skill sets are what the Shi fixers were originally meant to use. The art book mentions that the Shi's practice emphasizes efficient means of killing, finding weak points, and executing plans promptly, which all of these strategies embody. So if that's the case, all of the desperate skills that the Fixers adopted during this deluge of work were learned on the fly by being adaptable. And to
This is your
me,
thought
that
scene
just
in the
makes
background.
Eugen, Valentine, and Tenma all the more impressive and likable. They weren't just a trio of Fixers trying to get out from under a corrupt system puppeted by a madman, but were able to keep a steady head and remember what's really important despite everything Thelma put them through. Which also means it's a shame that none of this worked out, but there is at least one silver lining. Thelma is dead! Yeah, our faceless offender ended up falling into Argalia's trap by not taking down the library.
yeah,
And
that's
since
right.
That was one of the targets on his list. There's some consequences! Bozo was taken out to the back streets of District 23, flayed up, and left to rot for the sweepers. So Fixers, Feathers, and Fingers,
We got him.
this man's not gonna hurt anyone ever again, and the she can go back to normal.
Wow.
And the she can go back to normal.
About
And
that.
the she can go back to normal. And the she... Okay, look. We don't get a ton from the She's uptie cutscenes in comparison to other Limbus IDs, but She Ishmael's gives us enough to tell that the other She sections are getting shafted too. Now, to be fair, it's unclear if the events here take place at the same time as the events in LOR, or if they're in the present, since uptie stories don't always take place at the same point in time. So if we assume that this did take place during Thelma's reign, this makes sense. But if we assume that this takes place around the time of Limbus Company, that changes a lot. Because it's not like these guys are Valpurgis IDs and represent the LOR characters. These guys are from Section 5, not Section 2. And while I do have to mention
5
that
is
in
just an
Kanto
upside down
4, after
too.
Shren got her sideways tattoo, Ishmael clarified that the Section 5 and 6 southern branches were amateurs. In Library of Ruina, there was a whole other section that got wiped out before Eugen's story even began. And if these IDs are amateurs, that's every reason they would focus on learning skills based on what they're dealing with right now. And if you're thinking, Frey, haven't you lost the plot a bit? Well, you're not seeing the bigger picture here! There are only two possibilities for what's happening with the She's practices. Either Thelma was a low point for the Southern Branch, or this overworked culture, which I will say is more extreme than the other associations, wasn't just exclusive to Library of Ruina, but continued to some extent into Limbus Company should the IDs take place there. Or worse yet, this has always been a problem even before Library of Ruina. Because even if we use Eugen as a reference to call this a low point, that doesn't necessarily mean things were perfect before or after, does it? All of the unnamed fixers from the Southern She lean super hard into the low HP strats, even using self-damaging pages. So, did they just learn on the fly as newcomers? Or was the association always an unhealthy place to work? Not to mention, Ishmael's
those tiles would not have
also
meant anything
shows
to
that she
me.
did odd jobs as a fixer before being invited to the She. So they do look for people that are willing to do just about anything. And sure, Eugen and her team were struggling under their own greater burden, I get that. But they had other skills to fall back on. Can you imagine being one of those generic fixers? The only thing you've learned is how to deal with terrible situations while your body's close to breaking, let alone being under the weight that Thelma thrust onto everyone. Hell, that's a totally different experience from Eugen. But it's not like anyone who is there has any dialogue about it. I mean, the closest we could know is how it feels to be She Heathcliff, since he's clearly the newest member in the She Mirror World. But his cutscene doesn't say much else than that. So how the fuck can I get the perspective of someone that's intimately familiar with these self-damaging methods, also knows what it's like to throw yourself into seemingly impossible odds where it could be an endless amount of time to know what it's like? You're asking me to find one of the world's ultimate masochists!
Right, eat a Snickers. You're not you when you're hungry.
On April 18th, 2024,
Lad went off the deep
YouTube
end.
user Rip Cully began streaming himself fighting the final boss of Limbus Company's Kanto 6 in a stream called Sheath. The stream went on for nearly 11 hours, but ended
I know
without
that
him
feel.
beating the boss a single time. This is because he had decided to try a solo run using She Heathcliff, something that the meta part of Limbus calls a bad ID. And I don't really pay too much attention to meta since that's
same.
not how I enjoy the game. But the
Yeah,
sheet
see,
stream
Frey
had
gets it.
come off of 2 other videos where Rip Cully had beaten the same fight with a different single ID. The stream ending this way, making it feel like this was impossible to complete until he streamed this again and again and again.
Determination!
And again.
Hell yeah, dude!
There are over 40 documented hours of this stream on YouTube, which caught the
What a
attention of the
legend!
community to a
No
large
shot!
degree. Hell, I tend to avoid watching other PM creators' content, but got curious enough to check out the stream to see
Frey
if
not
it
gonna
was
subscribe
a
to me.
genuinely inspiring time, even amid the numerous losses. Now,
Hell
this
yeah,
isn't my story
dude.
to tell, nor is it the purpose of the video. I do admire the guy's attitude in choosing to play how he wants, and he did eventually win the challenge. But more importantly, Rip Cully is likely the only person in the world who not only experienced being She Heathcliff for over 40 hours, but did so under conditions as close to those Eugen experienced as I can ever hope to get. If I want to know what it was like to be a baseline She Fixer during those terrible times, this is my best chance. So
Yeah,
after getting his
probably.
permission, I asked him a few
Here's
questions
the
about his
situation.
time during the challenge.
Alright, that's
Cully
enough. No more
explained
yelling.
that during the entire ordeal, he knew that She Heath would stay under the 50% HP boundary of death, never having to wonder what it'd be like to deal with not getting the low health buffs the ID sports. And while there was a moment during the run that required him wrangling dogs out of his control, look, if you know, you know. Cully saw the whole thing as inevitable, knowing that luck may not have been on his side, but he could take as many shots as he needed to eventually make the kill. And lastly, he mentioned that the best way he was able to keep going was to think of how close his next shot would be to finishing, how fun it was to improve, and not wanting to disappoint those cheering him on. And well, that last
yeah, that's
answer
the way to
doesn't
do it,
translate
man.
well to actually being a one-strike assassin like the She encourages, but I guess that's what I get for trying to make streaming poetic. Regardless, what I saw from this was that as She Heathcliff, you're balancing both playing the long game and keeping yourself up just for that tiny extra bit longer to make it pay off. The focus is beyond the single fight, but keeping yourself in a state of tension and anticipation to be at your best. Put differently, you accept that things
I could
aren't gonna be
never ever
applicable
do
for you
that, man.
anytime
Just like
soon,
that
but
kind
they
of
will later
determination,
on.
man.
You just don't know
The
when
40
that later
the
is. And
40
as a
hours
coping
worth of
mechanism,
attempts, I'm not
that's
sure I could
fine.
do that.
I've done that. But as a workplace culture, holy shit, that is MLM levels of manipulative.
What all?
So if you're thinking of getting a job at the She Association, you're already walking the boundary of death, because there's at least a 1 in 4 chance that the office you join will slowly kill you. Best case scenario, Thelma was the only blip on an otherwise proud company motto. Worst case, they were just the straw that broke the camel's back. Either way, the She never deserved Eugen's team, and considering that she's Kim Ji-hoon's favorite guest, odds are we'll see her again someday. But in the meantime,
Eugen!
I just hope she's out there updating her LinkedIn profile and talking shit to her heart's content. Hey, look, fancy seeing you here at the end of all things. While I
That's amazing. Wow. 40 hours on one boss. Jeez. Man, hats off to R.I.P. Cully. I don't know enough about Limbus Company to know like how bad that She Association ID is for Heathcliff. But just knowing it took 40 hours for that one boss is absolutely insanity. Whoever they are, I hope that they're proud of themselves.
I love everything about the death game genre. Whether it's in anime, TV dramas, or video games,
no, Smack,
there's
no.
just something
That's
so
enough.
cathartic about being introduced to a group of characters who are coerced into a life or death situation and have to follow
that's
some
enough.
silly little rules on top of it. Any major plays a character
That's
pulls
enough.
off are all the more satisfying when we know they're doing it under the additional stress and restrictions. And when they lose, seeing that person break
Yeah,
into
hell
the
if I know, dude.
realization that this Mario Party 9 results ass looking screen of all things is the last thing they'll ever know feels like a special kind of cruel and makes it all the easier to hate the host. And the host! Half the fun is seeing how this monster of a person bounces off of everyone else. From the first moment they reveal the latest inhuman challenge that's up to bat, to the last moments of a contestant's life as they beg, bargain, or even lash out at the person who brought them to this place, there's this twisted authority these characters take on to justify using torture as live entertainment. And as a result, nearly every death game story is about the protagonist not only surviving, but finding out how to confront the host and end the game. And while that comes with its own satisfaction, what if I told you there was a game where
wanna see Yu-Gi-Oh!
instead
Season
of
0.
breaking a death game apart, you were hosting one? Library of
That's an
Ruin is a
interesting
game
comparison.
that, despite having more content warnings than side effects on your standard painkillers, manages to be surprisingly upbeat and fun just as often as it's harrowing and painful, giving you this feeling of running a death game as the main event in a casino. It all starts with this guy, Roland. The
Hi,
man who
Roland.
got so lost trying to buy a sandwich, he wandered into an alternate dimension and found the titular library, only to be met with its AI host Angela, who proceeds to break all of his limbs and knock him out.
Yeah.
Minutes later,
Golly.
Roland wakes in the main hall of the library with
opening.
all of his injuries healed by Angela, who then places him in indentured servitude, forced to defend
Yay!
the place against any invited guests. And this arrangement is what makes up our host and assistant dynamic, as well as the main driving force of the game. Because unlike regular libraries, this place's purpose is to collect and hoard knowledge rather than give it out. And all that's done through these little invitations. Anyone who receives one is given the offer to fight the librarians
yeah.
within, allowing them to take any books they want upon winning. But if they lose, the guests will instead be turned into books themselves. The idea being that with enough books, Angela can find a way to free herself from her restrictions as an AI, as well as maybe something else. And if you're wondering why anyone would agree to risking their life and limb just for the sake of some books, well, I'm glad you've never had to seriously consider joining the US Army. But if that's not enough to convince you, let me introduce you to some very important people. Outside in the back streets of some place you'd never want to be are these three: Pete, Lenny, and Mang-Chi, rushing to harvest organs from a body and escape before the authorities can catch on to him. Having no money, no remaining family, and no authority to speak of,
Yep.
these three are fittingly called rats, due to mainly moving in groups and acting out of a desperation to simply survive. And today, they've taken an organ harvesting job for a reasonably powerful crime syndicate called the Stray Dogs. Pete in particular, having a dream to be a big name in the crime underworld, is hoping to use this as a way to work his way up the ladder. However, something odd happens. While Lenny's able to finish the job, any organs she harvested were somehow mangled beyond recognition before this man was even knocked out. And stranger still, there was an envelope in the man's body, which states that if they sign it, they'll have the opportunity to get any books they want after overcoming a trial. Pete, in hopes of salvaging his dream, jumps on this offer. Mang-Chi and Lenny, while not as hopeful, are aware they're as good as dead if they come back empty-handed, and agree to sign as well. Which means at this moment, the rats have become the first guests of the library. Given a last chance to survive and rebuild their lives, they enter its brightly lit halls, prepare their weapons, and meet Roland on the battleground. All that remains is for
Hammer.
Pete to overcome this single lost man, his team rising to the occasion as he...
Wrecked. There's apparently an achievement for beating like one of the syndicates with the
rule one
PK
of
page.
Library of Ruin. Much like a casino, the house always wins. It doesn't matter if the invitation's sent to a couple of cannibal chefs who have a surprisingly healthy partnership, a group of lawyers led by their little light bright boss, or this group of
Light-bright.
tailors known only as the Carnival. Every conflict begins with being introduced
Oh,
to the hopes,
no.
dreams, whatever the hell else have ya of any new group of people, before inevitably bringing their lives to an end.
Ah, why must you hurt me, Frey?
Death is only one half
Damn
of
it.
the death game experience, ain't it? So how exactly does the game part of this go? Well, let me ask you something. Why play a game with only dice or cards when you could have both? Much like any turn-based combat game, the big idea here is to get that funny little HP number to 0, and maybe the yellow one while we're at it. Pick your attacks every turn, look at the dice on your cards or pages, let them rip, and then see how big the numbers go against the others. And there's no need to get out any D6s, D8s, or D20s either. A D 1 to 2, 3 to 7, or 2 to 5 will do the job too. It's just as simple as that. Well, okay. Maybe there is a little more to the combat. You see, Every fighter has a resource called light that they use to pay for pages, which limits how much output you can use each turn. Oh, and after every fight, you can have an Alabama barbecue and burn the books of your opponents, which will allow you to take their pages
Alabama.
and stats. Some fights are against these eldritch abominations called abnormalities, which lie inside the library and are these puzzle battles that'll reward you with additional forbidden powers. Every attack also has a move type, which some characters are either weak to or strong against. After the first few fights, you'll start to get more librarians to back
ineffective.
you up too. Every time you clash with an enemy, you'll get an emotion coin, which allows you to refill your light quickly once you get enough. If you fill up everyone's emotion levels enough, you'll get abnormality pages that can power up a librarian of your choice. Eventually, enemies will come
Or
by
all
being
of
able
them.
to use multiple attacks per turn. You will meet Philip. Some pages have the ability to paralyze,
Yay,
burn,
Philip.
or bleed the target on hit. Over time, you'll unlock
Yes.
more floors of the library, each with their own abnormality pages as the game continues on. You will meet Philip. Later, you'll not only take the moves and forms of your guests, but mix and match their passive abilities as well. Mass attacks allow you to attack all enemies at once, but are first used against you when fighting the Queen of Hatred. You will
No.
meet Philip, the Mountain of Smiling Bodies, Yoga PTSD therapy, summoning the power
Oh,
of
God,
monsters
no,
through
damn it.
ego pages.
Why?
You will meet the second coming of Jesus, the four magical girls of the apocalypse. So,
Ah.
once you get past the first few little mechanics, it all, well,
Shut up. Okay. Everything is fine. Alright.
it still gets hard. But hey, nobody
Yeah,
runs a
pretty much.
library
God
because it's easy,
damn it,
right?
dude.
And we haven't even gotten to the crushing sense of guilt yet. Because one minute, you're some indentured literature
Someone
worthy
made
gladiator,
a
and the next you're getting slapped in
actual-
the face with a guest or a monster that knows
Someone
just
made
how
a
to mix
conscious
you up.
decision to
So
keep
what do
that,
you
to
do?
clip that
Easy.
into
You
the
become a
video, and I
writer,
don't like
mix
them.
them up yourself. Win,
I hope
rinse,
that when
repeat,
they
and turn
go
it
to
into
heat
a
up their
gacha
tea,
game.
they forget it in the
And after
microwave
a
for like 2
while,
days and it
seeing
gets
a
all
new invitation
moldy.
becomes just as much about testing your
Yeah,
new
I'm fine.
silly little pages as it is inspiring some first edition obituaries. And it gets even more interesting with many people coming to the library not out of hope or desperation, but simply
Revenge.
out of revenge for the ones you already took from them. Every
We will
single
avenge the cake
one
stealer.
increasing the notoriety and bounty on this entire place for more people to try and take
You
it
will
down.
meet Philip.
Which again means new books, new fights, and new stories. Ad infinitum, baby! And as the human wave
Nah, just for like
tactics
3 or
start to
4
fail
months.
even the strongest of fighters, you eventually have to ask yourself the question, is this really consent? Are so many people truly enthralled by what the library has to offer?
I asked that same
Or are they
question. I was like,
just
I don't
being
really consider
forced to
this
choose
free
between
will,
the kinder
but
of two deaths?
not that I believe in
And
free
even
will
if
in the
that's
first
case,
place,
is
but
there
yeah,
any
they're
way
definitely
out?
manipulating
And
doing it.
is it even your business to try and find that out when you're still trying to survive yourself? You've got your own problems. That's that, and this is this. No matter how many times it happens. And if that's the case, well, why don't we just have some fun filling up the shelves? What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, pretty much. That sounds about right. My first time noticing Oswald in the intro.
Library of Ruina is a game with fantastic music, intricate combat, and characters given so much detail that it feels like such a shame for them
Oh,
to meet their
Finn.
end. And because of that, expect
Finn,
to
my
see more
boy.
videos out about the city and those that live in it sometime soon. If you haven't already seen it, there's one that recently came out about my personal favorite story, Lovetown. So if you feel like there just isn't enough
Yeah, we're gonna be
content
watching that
talks
next.
about these characters, please, feel free to let me know in the comments what
Dante.
character, setting, or story you'd like to see. Hell, you could even see it early by joining my Patreon. But until then, goons, have fun cracking some spines. Make sure to like the subscribe button, and I'll catch you later.
Why you gotta do me like that? Okay, let's see. Lovetown is an existential nightmare. Ain't that the truth?
If I chop you up in a meat grinder, and the only thing that comes
Smells
out
bad.
that's left of you is your eyeball, you're probably dead.
But what
Well.
if you weren't?
Yeah.
Looks like we're talking about the
Anyone
warp train
familiar with
today.
the end of
That
death
comes from
scenario
pretty
in the
amazing
SDP
content
Foundation?
warnings. The warp train story, also known as Love Town, has gotta be one of my favorite pieces of lore from the Project Moon franchise. But it's also of the most gruesome, gory,
Yep.
and
It's
existentially
awful.
terrifying stories they've ever told. If you're not on board for that, well, here's your stop. If you are, though, then I've just got
Done.
one question for you. If I offered to take you anywhere you wanted in 10 seconds, and you knew for sure that it would work without issue, would you take my offer? Because if so, then you'd be like many customers of the Warp Train, a magnificent piece of technology made possible by W Corp Singularity, one of the 26 major inventions that keep the city running. And just as you'd expect, not only is this train useful for getting around the metropolis nearly as large as South Korea, but it's so popular that passes cost an arm and a leg. Hell, make it two if you ride first class. But what we're interested in is exactly how it works, and more importantly, what happens when it doesn't. And to do that,
It
let's
works.
look into the events of
Boy,
one
does it work.
particular trip. Tommy and Mary are a young couple on their way to take a vacation and manage to save up just enough to afford their first warp train ride. Tommy, being the more cautious of the two, is nervous about the safety of the train. But Mary, knowing that people take it for work every day, comforts him, saying that everything's going to be alright. And without any trouble, they make it onto the train and buckle into one of the 10 seats that are in their car. Soon after, the train starts, and a warning's given that the doors will be locked shut during the trip, preventing anyone from getting out. This is especially important because W Corp has access to tools that are capable of creating portals to separate dimensions. As such, opening the door on this train will cause disastrous effects to those inside, much like being on an airplane. And it's by sending all 30 cars of the train through that space that they're able to bypass any conventional traffic and reach the end destination in a matter of 10 seconds. But then 10 seconds pass and nothing changes. And okay, maybe it's not quite
I don't remember,
as
does
fast
the
as
train have a
advertised. 10
conductor, or
seconds
is it
does make for a
automated?
handy tagline, but you know, the burgers on TV never look as good as the ones you actually get, right? Let's just give it a little longer. And then an hour passes. No changes. Not even any announcement or sign of something being broken. Just complete silence minus the whirring of the train's engine. Something has to be wrong, but being unable to open the doors, nobody can do anything but wait. So the passengers keep waiting for 6 hours, 10 hours, and by 17 hours, nearly everyone has cut their seatbelts to start walking around, still getting no signs of what's going on. The only thing that's changed is that Tommy, Mary, and everyone around them are clearly scared and on edge, as the idea of them being trapped on this train is starting to feel more like a reality. The only question on everyone's mind being, how much longer will this last?
Thousands of
We reach
years.
the 31-hour mark, which feels absurd. If you were missing for that long, someone would start to wonder if you had been kidnapped. But despite that, and everyone being scared, there's a new question that's come to the forefront. When is the last time that I ate? And more importantly, why don't I feel hungry? Because at this point, with not only how much time has passed, but how stressed everyone's been, the idea of starving should have crossed someone's mind. Yet, while all of the passengers
here
are
we are.
clearly trapped, nobody here is feeling the negative effects of either hunger or thirst. With so much to process and so little answers, this becomes too much for poor little Tommy to take, causing him to pass out for 3 entire days. And when he wakes up, he's greeted not only by Mary, but 2 other passengers, Elena and Jae-hyun, a nurse and doctor that both have taken the train before without issue and are trying to make sense of the situation. While everyone's in agreement that W Corp has some explaining to do, they all agree that the fact that nobody needs to eat or do anything that comes afterward means the best they can do is keep waiting for help. Doing so for another few days before one passenger makes a discovery that irreversibly shakes everyone aboard. In the next car over, a man, manic from being trapped in a train car for over 2 weeks, has decided to slit his neck for everyone to see. But instead of dying, his head still dangles from his torso, the neck barely holding on. More disturbing still, his blood never fully separated from his body.
Fair.
So it insisted on staying as
Your
one
discretion is
whole
appreciated,
being.
Frey.
And to the horror of the onlookers, he's not just still alive, but he can still talk, despite feeling in as much
Yep.
pain as one normally would from these kinds of injuries.
Not great.
Oh, look at this.
I'm not a fan of that.
My neck is
Yeah, it's,
barely dangling.
yeah, that's a voice acting right there.
Alive.
Oh,
Distraught, the
Man.
other passengers do the only thing they can. And
Props to the
climb
voice
the
actor,
man
but I
in one
hate
of
you.
black carriages. And as the news
Don't
spreads
like
over
the way
next
you
day,
sound. Gonna be
a
real with
handful
you,
of
man.
Others inflicted similar wounds on themselves in a desperate attempt to cope with the uncertainty and suffocating passage of time by feeling anything, even if it's pain. This new development once again begging the question, how much longer will this last?
Millennia.
By now, Car 7, the one containing Tommy, Mary, Elena, and Jae-hyun, has become the center of a support network actively working to keep all of the unharmed passengers safe and calm. Due to their bedside manner, everyone in Car 7 and many nearby cars have stayed strong despite the attempted unaliving population now filling the 5 cars in the back of the train. So, you know, at least there's a group keeping order on the train, right?
Yep. Just keeps getting worse. Man, this was so hard to
Things
watch.
have changed. While cars 5 through 15 are still banding together to keep everyone sane, the cars beyond 15 are now entirely composed of injured, massacred, and nearly unrecognizable bodies getting through every moment using pain. Only this time, it's not by choice. Over the past 2 months, the self-afflicting passengers have decided to not only revel in their own pain, but to attack and mutilate the unharmed passengers, tearing them apart and playing with them like toys, causing 10 cars to have fallen during this time. As a result, this has caused a war to break out between the warped passengers and the ones clinging onto hope, barricading the doors with luggage and using makeshift weapons to defend themselves. However, due to the way the train works, one side has a clear advantage. While there may technically be infinite time on the train, the amount of conflict, injury, and stress of being trapped has taken a mental toll on everyone. And as that time has gotten longer, that toll's only gotten greater. So while nobody is able to die, anybody that is injured, either by themselves or by someone else, is going to feel much more of that strain every moment until they too reach their breaking point, effectively joining the afflicted mob. And as a result, putting an even greater strain on the remaining passengers. And now 3 months in, every single person knows that on some level. And every single person now has to ask themselves, how much longer will I last? But there are 2 things the survivors have that the afflicted don't. The first is that while the afflicted are driven by the need to feel something, the survivors are motivated by the need to save their loved ones. And the second is that they have both the medical and surgical knowledge of Elena and Jae-hyun. The combination of these 2 resulting in many of the survivors going through a procedure to make them stronger, using that desire
It took
to
some
save
guts
each
for
other.
those 2 to
And
agree to do
this
this.
is
I
what
gotta
leads
say,
Elena to
like,
ask Tommy and Mary
yeah, I'm
if
sure
they
Pluto
want to
gave
go
him
through the
some
procedure
kind
in order to help
of
turn the tide in the
assurance, but I
war.
mean,
Mary is willing.
oof, that's
Tommy hesitates
that's quite
until
an
seeing
order.
the passengers in carriage 14 get raided, unable to even stay cognizant now. And 113 days into this ride, he agrees, if only to make sure the same thing doesn't happen to Mary. Day 120 comes, and the procedure is complete. It's unclear what's become of them, but Tommy and Mary can now feel each other's heartbeats, suggesting that somehow their bodies have been merged. 30 days later,
Yep.
Tommy and Mary are called to fight to help keep Carriage 10 safe. Now merged to the point of speaking in unison, Jae-hyun tells them that their affection will give them the power they need to continue fighting for as long as necessary, and he promises that this will be enough to turn the tide of the war quickly.
Just keeps getting worse. Like, every time I saw that number go up, I would just dive inside. Like, oh, come on, how? How do we keep getting more and more? Yep. A casual 700,000 days later.
2,000 years have passed within the confines of the train. Any memories of the dozens of years of life before the train have long gone, and all that remains is a little place called Lovetown. There's no longer any war or even differences between the survivors and the afflicted. Long past are the times of the struggle. Now, only the love that keeps the masses together. But while their bodies still move, their minds are long gone, reverted to children unable to think of anything other than the love that binds them and the meat that molds them. And yet, in a grim kind of way, it's almost peaceful. There's no more stress, no more worrying about the outside, left in a happy little place simply called Lovetown. And just like that, everyone's made it to their stop in only 10 seconds. Warp well.
Yay!
So, what exactly
How amazing!
happened? In short, business as usual. In fact, nearly everything on the train that happened was by design. The doors locking, the ride stopping, the stasis the passengers were put in, and even the eventual destruction of their bodies were all a factor in how the train runs. Because while the train is able to transport people anywhere in 10 seconds, there's a bit more to it than that. The train
Time is
does
relative.
work by creating portals to a separate space and does get people to their destination 10 seconds after leaving through bypassing traffic. However, it doesn't do this through bypassing anything in space, but in time. See, once the train is in its new space, it uses an engine from T-Corp, another large company, to store time and compress it before returning to its destination 10 seconds later. And if that sounds confusing, yeah,
It is.
it is. But put simply, the portal's used to place passengers in a private location, and while the engine is able to compress time, it needs a large amount of time to pass here for it to save time in the original dimension. Just think of it like getting interest on a bank account or something. And so we know how it brings people into warp space, how it gets people to their destination in 10 seconds, but the passengers when they return are still, well, sentient chowder. And if you're a fan of Limbus Company, you likely know what happens next. W Corp agents primarily work by entering the trains in these states and placing the bodies back into their seats. And yes, they both have to defend themselves from anyone who can still move and make sure the chunks from each person go in the right seat, at which point W Corp uses their singularity, it's not the ability to create portals, don't ask, Control-Z jutsu to return all of their bodies to the states they were in when entering the train. So what can we take away from this?
Control-Z
Well,
jutsu.
I don't know about you, but I never got this moment out of my head. Hell, I nearly lost my
Same.
lunch for first playing this on stream. And while some of
It's
that was due to the
so
way
rough,
Tamarin
man.
exists, what hit the hardest was the existential
Absolute,
dread that
yeah.
the story induced.
Existential
The instant they hit that
nightmare,
15-day mark,
100%.
My stomach dropped, and I felt like I could see the impending downfall of everyone on board. And every event afterward felt like a punch to the gut. Seeing every bloody domino fall, wondering just how long everyone could last. And when the timestamps jump from 150 days in to over nearly 10 years, and then 2,000? Felt like the story up until then was a knife that was sticking itself into me before rapidly twisting itself twice. But you know the worst part that stuck with me? Left me up at night? Made me want to make a video on this before anything else from Library of Ruina? There was just nothing anyone on the train could do. Nobody
Yep.
there was assaulting anyone to survive, but it was out of an insidious force that can and will still affect humanity even if world hunger, shelter, or nearly any other crisis are solved. Boredom. While I may be oversimplifying it a bit, the reason that people started getting hurt was due to wanting to feel something to pass the time. And I don't care who you are, if you're given 2,000 years, no, the prospect of eternity for all you know, and needing to pass the time with that tension, it only takes 1 out of 300 people to break, or even just injure themselves for everything to take a turn for the worst. It's stuck in
Yeah.
my head as this unexpected existential terror that could strike you at any time in an enclosed space. And it left me just constantly asking, what could I do in this situation to not become this? And every time I read it through,
Nothing.
I came to the
You're
same
Dunsky.
conclusion that no matter what you do, it's entirely inevitable and part of human nature to succumb to the need
It's one
for
thing if you
change.
know that there's
Every
an end
time.
point, right? Like if you know
Except
there's
one.
2,000
There's
years.
a way you can survive the warp train without turning into Tamarinara sauce. And if you want to know how to beat it, well, just let me know in the comments, baby. Because we have so many
Oh
topics to
god,
cover
that's
here
awful.
that I've got to make polls out of it to figure out what comes next. As always, thank you to everyone for watching, as well as my kind supporters on Patreon. I'm really glad y'all like this kind of content, since I feel like the PM community deserves to have some kind of high-quality content to enjoy. So, I don't know, take
It's
care
true.
and, hey, good job not distorting today.
Yay! Pigeons, we ain't to start today. Alright, hold on. I think I found that one Angela song before we brief interlude. This is good. Couldn't agree more, Corey. Honestly, one of my favorite songs in the soundtrack. I said it several times yesterday. I'm gonna keep saying that. I love this song. Pretty good, pretty good. This is by Everything Fantasy, by the way. If you're digging this one like I am. Very, very lovely. All right. All right, next Frey video.
Let's not kid
The
ourselves
Unwanted
here.
Hero.
As fun as it is to make fun of Philip, none of us are gonna fare much better in his shoes. And to those who take issue with that, go ahead, leave a comment, because that's a great way to convince people you're a badass. True to its name, Library of Ruina is stacked with great character stories, but Philip is one of the most complex and fun to watch characters throughout the entire game.
Fun to watch?
Outside
I don't
Rachel
know
and
about
Roland,
that.
there is no other character that's got people everywhere from loving him, to hating him, to loving to hate the man. And where you fall on that line says much more about you than it does him. Because in a Project Moon,
Man, I just
where
feel
named
so
character
bad for
death
Philip.
happens every Tuesday, money's the law of the land, and the actual law of the land is better left untested, they somehow made a character that's closer to being a player insert than some main protagonists. Being sheltered for his entire working life until he's thrown to the books, Philip's story is messy, uncomfortable, and most importantly, annoying to the right people. And I'm not saying that to tell people that don't like this character to get out. I genuinely mean that the story of Philip's growing pains make use of every character he interacts with to get different emotions out of different players. And there was enough here
Yeah,
in
he
only
sure
the first
did.
2 receptions for me to interpret him in a different way.
He could
every time I
have
went
been
through.
the real
So with the last
hero.
Walpurgis Night giving us an ID that covers these 2 receptions, what better time than now to throw this baby boy into the limelight?
Wait, is there a
This
Philip idea in
is
Limits?
the
Excuse me?
rise of Philip.
Oh my goodness, I need it.
Now, for those who noticed that I specifically said Philip's rise, there's a reason for that. Since this guy has one of the longest stories in all of Library of Ruina, I'm breaking this up into 2 parts. This first one's
Yeah, no
going to be
kidding.
everything we see from Philip up through the Urban Plague section of the game. While that might sound small, this gives us a full 3-act story without dragging its feet. And it all starts with the
Dawn Office.
Dawn Office starts in one of the more comfortable looking settings out of any LOR
Oh,
series.
and it's for
Here we
Sinclair?
meet Philip,
Yes.
serving tea to his superior and mentor,
Oh, Silver.
Salvador, while he
Silverheart not following me on
It
Twitch.
just
Thanks,
happens
Silver.
that he's
Appreciate
reading
you.
about his old friend and a past guest,
Not using Twitch yet, but we'll get there.
Walter, who recently died. Philip gives his condolences to Salvador, but he doesn't think much of it. And
Dude,
while
the fact
part
that
of
Sinclair
is
gets it
because
is
he wasn't very
amazing.
fond
All
of
right,
Walter
I gotta
as
get
an
it.
old
I
friend,
gotta find it.
what we've seen
I
in
need
this
that
game
ID in my
now is
life.
that death is a staple in the
I gotta
city,
develop a
and letting
gambling
yourself
addiction
get turned
finding
up
that
by it's only
ID.
gonna cause you problems. A lesson that old Salvi learned a long time ago. None of this may be spoken, but the past events are informing how we read the present. Once they're done speaking ill of the dead, our third office member enters the room, Yuna. Having
Yuna.
come back after handling her own urban legend job solo, we're shown that she's a bit more blunt with Philip, having once
Naturally.
again spent the day making tea for Salvador. But once old
I
Salvador
have
takes
to,
a
if it
moment
wasn't
to
for
reflect,
Lorraine, I was gonna be
they spend
upset.
some time going over Yuna's last job. Her target, the 1,000 needles, is never shown on screen. It was a distortion
Shout out to
capable
Yu-Gi-Oh.
of launching needles into both buildings and people, which could cause them to melt or even explode. While it was a dangerous job, she was able to not only pull it off, but tell that whatever caused this thing to appear was another distortion called Yesterday's Promise. By now, we've heard the word distortion a couple of times in the game, but only as the name of a transformation that turns people into dangerous monsters. And Yuna's job implies that Yesterday's Promise is somehow involved and capable of using magic, meaning a power source not known to the city. But hey, all that's important is that Yuna came back alive and well, payment and all. Salvador says as much just before she laments that she seems to be the only person taking on any jobs these days. Fortunately for all of them, Salvi just received a new request for a certain urban plague that's been causing trouble for the city, and would pay the rent for the next 3 months. That, of course, being the library. Now, seeing this as a larger job than normal, Salvador originally wanted to call in help from their sister office, the Wedge office. But with their team
I never
being
said
caught
Burn
up in
was
the
good,
cloud
I just said I
fiesta,
like it.
He decides the 3 of them are enough to take on
You don't
the
have,
job.
it doesn't have to be
Philip,
good for you to
however, is
enjoy it,
less
or at least it doesn't have to
certain,
be good
as
for
this is
me
his
to
first
enjoy it,
urban
rather.
plague case. Yet Salvador gives him gentle encouragement, saying to just treat this as a learning experience and watch how they handle it. And this is where we need to go over how Philip, Yuna, and Salvador work as a dynamic. From the very start of this cutscene, Philip has held a very subservient attitude towards Salv, not just by bringing him tea, but waiting to ask a question until he's finished a thought, and speaking less often than anyone else in the scene. Philip's experience with the Dawn office is treated less like a job and more like an internship in a lot of ways. Despite him having been here for months and sharing the same position with Yuna, both her and Salvador talk to him like he's still in training. Salvador being the more gentle of the two, with him frequently praising Philip and being the one to inform the player that Philip is a grade 5 fixer. Cause, I don't know, man. I wouldn't have guessed that from how he was acting here. Meanwhile, Yuna is
Yeah, I
still
mean, that's not a
kind, but
small
much more
feat from what I
direct with her
understand.
expectations of Philip. She's the only one to point out that it's not normal for Philip to spend so many of his days just talking with Salvador over tea and that she needs some help. And it's their interaction in the library that I think best displays this attitude. Philip, still being newer, brings up one of their past, less enjoyable jobs. Yuna, immediately remembering it, firmly tells Philip to drop the topic. But when Philip continues without reading the room, Salvador jokes about how close the topic is to making him hurl. Both of them are kind and respectful about it, just in very different ways. And there's still more to it. A lot of their interactions involve these two seeing potential in Philip while he's still far behind them. I know some people might get upset for me using this as a reference, but the Sinclair ID Uptie story explains this very well. Much of Philip's
Wait, I think I
combat
have this ID.
experience that
I don't
he's
think
learned
I
through the
grasped that it
Dawn
was
office
Philip.
was through training more so than field work. And don't get me wrong,
Hold on,
Salvador is a
shut up, pause. I need to open up Discord, Steam. I need to open up Steam real quick. Let me log in. Hold on. I think I unlocked that ID the last time we did some rolling. That looks so familiar. Hold up. I need to know. Quickly. Library, Limbus Company, start, go. I must know. It might have been, I don't know, this ID looked really familiar, so hold on. I wasn't really paying attention because I was focused on getting that Dawn one, so I didn't really care who else I got. Sinners. Yes. No. Maybe I didn't. I bet I saw it in like the preview thing. I'm just checking everything just in case. Dun. Nope, I didn't. I probably saw it in I probably saw it like here somewhere, just like in the little preview window, and it triggered the memory. Oh well. Curiosity satisfied. Okay, don't have it.
Grade 3 veteran of the Smoke War, and Yuna's an accomplished Grade 4. But there's only so much training's able to do to make someone an accomplished fixer. This gets even more telling when we're shown that when a job did come up, Salvi and Yuna handled the bulk of it. And while this did lead Philip to rise up through the ranks, it was more because of the recognition he got for being a part of the job than anything he did in those jobs. We never hear about his specific accomplishments with or before the Dawn office. So while this Sinclair Philip ID is an unreliable narrator, there's no great alternative for us to lean on. While we're on the topic, yes, this isn't Philip that I'm pulling this part from, but the Limbus IDs are made with the intent of getting the circumstances the characters are in and seeing how they would respond. Not to mention, this isn't a Nelly Ryoshu situation where the sinner has a starkly different personality from who they're based on. Without going into spoilers, Philip and Sinclair have a lot in common as characters, and I feel comfortable using it to better explain what's already in LOR.
That's not a bad point,
Come on,
actually.
they made a third CG for only this ID that shows Phil Claire falling behind the backs of Salvador and
Claire.
Yuna. If I'm wrong, that is now on you, Project Moon. Why would they make that if they don't want people to make the connection? All that to say is Yuna and Salvador see Philip as a potential man in his own right, who still needs to be given the proper tools before he's ready. But Philip sees this in a very different light. Again, the Phil Claire CG should tell you everything you need to know. He's had mostly simulated experiences with his work and doesn't have the confidence or tact that comes with the real thing. So even though he's consistently given reassurance from his comrades, that's not going to replace any actual proof of his competence. Also, he has a crush on Yuna, and when I factor this part into all of the rest of the story, Philip now gives me the energy of a nice guy. Not a nice guy TM, but someone who's generally well-adjusted and happens to use Reddit. Smart in some ways, a little naive, but just with the sense that if they ever came into actual issues, they're not gonna stay that way. But well, Philip's got a chance to prove himself for real now. And with 2 above-average fixers by his side, party plans afterward, and a passion to do right by him, he readies his weapon and stands tall against the library before doing something incredible.
Flee!
He runs away. The next shot we see of Philip is of him.
Yeah, I very likely
being
saw it
offered
from the
right.
dispense window.
The game quickly makes it clear that this is the Wedge office, which the Dawn office is close to. My mistake. Was close to. In the last battle, while Philip made it out alive, both Salvador and Yuna had fallen. And while this isn't the first time someone has run from a library fight in the game, this reception was the first time a guest was actively encouraged to run by their teammates. Both Yuna and Salvador have several lines in their combat dialogue either telling Philip to run or just worrying about him even as they start to fall. Philip, for his part, is also increasingly weighed down by his doubts as the fight tilts further and further against him. So naturally, he runs. And just as naturally, he runs to the only group of people who would take him in, the Wedge office. It's here we immediately see Philip sharing the news of what happened to 2 fixers of the office, Pamela and Pamela. They both give him some advice on how to move on, but are generally unfazed by his loss. As always, this is the business they work in, so to them, all you can do is tell yourself whatever you need to hear to keep going. And here is where Oscar steps in. As both the operator of the office and a friend of Salvador, he takes
Oscar
an interest
doesn't
in Philip's
mince words.
loss,
I
but
appreciate
it's
that.
not in the way Philip hopes. See, the Wedge office is excellent in any job that involves analyzing their opponent's movements and hitting them where it hurts. Unfortunately for them, the clown fiesta they were taking on earlier was a distortion called the 8 o'clock circus. And as Oscar says in his key page, there was no specific pattern to their attacks, and it was akin to watching an erratic circus of lunacy. So once a lion bit into Pamela's body and killed her, they decided to call it a day and let some suspicious lady with a pipe follow the rest of the clown posse. Oh, and Pamela got better, don't worry. They had life insurance, so she got a copy of Pamela's body soon afterward. But all of this means that the Wedge office has every reason to want to know more about the distortion phenomenon. And since there are reports that the library is related to it in some way, Oscar asks Philip what he knows about the matter. But Philip's, going through it. All he can say say is that he hasn't experienced it and starts spiraling as he thinks about what happened to Yuna and Salvador. To which Oscar quickly says, that doesn't help. He tries to redirect Philip back to the task at hand, but Philip's not at all in a state to talk business. All he can really think about is how to get their books back and take down the library. So, since Salvador and Oscar are old friends, of course the rational thing to do is to ask for help. At first, Oscar isn't thrilled about the idea, but once Philip mentions he's been too torn up to break the news to Salvy's wife and kid, he lets him tag along to their own raid on the library. However, Oscar makes it clear this is out of more convenience than fondness. While he holds a lot of respect for Salvador, the same doesn't apply to Philip. And perhaps as a way to prevent him from asking later, he tells Philip that he'd never want a person like him to join his office. And this is where Philip's pain is on full display. No longer able to hide behind those that supported him, he's being carried by his grief and the thought of repaying Yuna and Salvador for their kindness by retrieving their books. He may also be thinking they could be saved with life insurance from Pamela's example, but don't quote me on that one. Hearing Oscar's dismissal, he goes on a whole diatribe about how everyone says being connected is such a naive and unclassy thing to do and asks, why? Why is it that people called fixers, or anyone else in the city for that matter, can't just do something for other people's sake? And when I was playing this game the first time, I was asking the same questions Philip did. The guy just saw his effective family die and came to the group that was supposed to be aligned with them. Isn't death a tragedy? Shouldn't we give a damn about our fellow man? And even on future playthroughs, I can't deny that what Philip is saying is correct. But the thing is, nobody else in the room thinks that way. Pamela chews into him, saying he may not be wrong, but it doesn't mean Oscar has to suddenly take on Philip's own problems. And then Oscar continues saying that it's these very thoughts Philip has that make him a flight risk. I'll be real and say that I didn't really get what he was saying my first time through, but one of his
I did.
lines
I would say the
did
same
stick
thing
out
Oscar
to me.
did.
There can be no such thing as a selfless action for us humans. Even the act of self-sacrifice is ultimately for oneself. In other words, no matter what Philip's justification is, he wouldn't be asking if he didn't want something. And this is enough to shut Philip down and get him to make preparations to face the library once again. As they arrive, Philip's much more reserved than before, reading the room a bit better and processing everything he's learned until now. And with this new experience and the help of the Wedge office, it's time to find out just how much he's learned from his experience with Pamela. Of the whole Wedge office, Pamela leaves the weakest impression on Philip. But that's kind of the point. Her personality in the art book is marked as frigid, and she's the person that advises Philip to harden his heart and move on from the deaths of his comrades. She does make a point alongside Pamela to tell Philip there's nothing wrong with being selfish if it allows you to keep going, but her method differs greatly from his. Both her words and manner of speaking show that she keeps an emotional distance from others. The best example being when she's in a heated argument and even makes a death threat, but never raises her voice.
아니다. 그냥 이번에는 어떤 방법으로든 복구할 수 없게 죽어버리는 게 낫겠다.
And I really like the contrast that shows, especially when compared to Pamela. These two are usually lumped together, and it's easy to see why. Their names, their battle styles, and even their bodies are nearly identical. But Pamela gets much more involved with Philip than her counterpart. When Philip vents about his near-death experience, Pamela makes it a point to ask him if he thinks their deaths were his fault. And Philip, being who he is, says yes. If he was stronger, wiser, or braver, then this would have never happened. And Pamela responds by saying, okay, then it's your fault, before rephrasing back what he had already said. The first time I read this cutscene, it felt like a cruel taunt, but I started appreciating it more on my second and third read-throughs, because there are two reasons Pamela is saying this. The first is to help Philip break out of his